So here's the physical setup for the KMA 99.1 megahertz test today. And I have the plasma antenna pointed upward at about a 30-degree angle, hoping to be able to get the right spot on the tower. There's the voltage supply. Goes between plus and minus. This is the spark that I use to initiate the lamps. When initiating the lamps, this is not connected. And this whole Kraken unit is distanced from it, and then once it's lit, I hook that stuff up. It goes into a Raspberry Pi. It has the Heimdall data acquisition software, and there's a gigabit Ethernet connection into this computer that's running GNU radio with a vented block from the Kraken RF guys that detects the phase difference, so that I can try to measure what's going on. And of course I've got the alternator over here running the engine pretty hot. I should probably point out that I take the measurements sitting in this chair. I don't start the measurements until I'm sitting in the chair with the shade over my head and over the screen so I can read what's going on. I sit there and I read out until the histogram shows that the peak is at something like 300 samples with whatever kind of narrow spread, and it is usually a narrow spread of the phase differences between the two channels. And it's worth pointing out that even with the gain such as 0 dB, the signal that's coming in is pretty substantial at 60, negative 60, which one would hope is enough to provide the phase detection system with discrimination. So I decided to put a couple of 30 dB low noise amplifiers on the output of the antenna, which has raised the from about 60 up to almost 40, so it's not quite 30 dB. But 20 dB is a pretty good gain. We'll see if this changes things. Here's the setup with the amplifiers coming straight out of this thing. And I'll take a null measurement of the phase. Null meaning there's no plasma, there's just the metal. And see what it does. I decided to change up the configuration of the cables a bit so that things would be more stable. And it has changed some of the phase a bit, but it's not enough to make much of a difference in determining what's going on here. And this is pretty much the same wiring configuration, except I did it for the minus DC. The prior configuration, which is almost the same as for the positive DC. And both states were taken with the lamps on and the lamps off to compare. It's worth mentioning that I tested out the phase detection of the Kraken with regular antennas, placing these two next to each other for channels 0 and 1. And then earlier I had them at their normal locations. And indeed the phase was as expected.